Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water, which is our signature series crossing over 125 sessions and overall 250 sessions. The conversation today is on participatory groundwater management and governance. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversation with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions which most of these water enthusiasts endeavor. It has expanded since then to have more activities like the Friday Waters and the Monday Munching with Women for Water, besides organizing physical water workshops, water walks and talks, seminars, special courses and conferences and panels to continue the water conversation in various possible ways. At W4W Foundation, we strongly believe that water conversation is the key step towards water conservation. We are here genuinely intending to really make water conversation so crucial that it becomes everybody's business, just like making water everybody's business, as rightly said by Laureate Anil Agarwal. Do visit our website, www.w4w.in for more details. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and I'm the moderator and host of the session from W4W. As we discuss today's session, participatory groundwater management and governance, the focus will be more on civil society's participation in collaboration with other stakeholders of the society. To do the today's session discussion, we have Eklavya Prasad and Vishwanath Parmar as speakers and Mohammad Imroz as discussant. So before I invite both our speakers to pitch for their ideas on the very hot topic of participation in groundwater management, let me just introduce Eklavya first and then invite him to present his viewpoint. And then I will invite Vishwanath. So Eklavya is a social development professional for almost 3 decades. He has been working on diverse water and sanitation related thematics, which is participatory groundwater management, shallow aquifer management, alternative, safe and sustainable drinking waterways, contextual and hygienic sanitation security, resilience and adaptability amidst extreme weather conditions, and adaptation to climate and human-induced disasters. In addition, he has been leading Megh Pyne Abhiyan, which we all know for a long time now, a campaign turned not-for-profit organization since 2005 in water-stressed rural and urban areas of Eastern India. His experience has been accumulated while working on a wide range of rural and urban issues. And he's worked on major areas of South Asia, Southeast Asia, East and Central Africa as well. He's been involved in steering grassroots implementation agencies, and that's why we have invited him here to understand how this social engineering works. I'm going to put his detailed resume in the chat box, and without taking further time, let me just invite him to talk about not only his on-ground activities, but his extensive writing on drinking water and sanitation systems suitable for diverse conditions, in fact, extreme conditions. Let me put that little bit more stress, and especially when his focus is on decentralized water management, shallow aquifer management, and so on and so forth. He's written extensively, he's spoken extensively. I have heard him at various platforms, and it is a privilege for me to have you, Eklavya, here. I hand over the session to you now for your presentation, and then we take it further. Thank you so much for taking out time.
Thank you so much, Mansee, for giving me this opportunity to come and share our learnings. I'll just upload my presentation.
Sure.
I hope you all are able to see it.
Yes, good to go.
Just 1 second. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. And as Mansee said, I'm Eklavya and I'm associated with Megh Pyne Abhiyan. And today I'll be basically sharing our learnings and experiences of participatory groundwater management as a collective engagement with an invisible resource. So basically, a lot of people might think that, why are we talking about participatory groundwater management, or PGWM in short? So basically, our learnings and our lessons of PGWM stems from our extensive work which we did in the alluvial floodplains of North Bihar across flood typologies. In fact, 5 flood typologies, which was supported by Arghyam, Bangalore, and the technical support was given to us by Aquadam, Pune. And the implementation was done through 5 field partner organizations. So that was one basic area from where we learned a lot. The second one was the study that Megh Pyne Abhiyan had undertaken to basically look at the state of water in Bihar. And it was implications under changing climate. So this was also a huge source for us to learn about participatory groundwater management and its relevance in flood-prone and drought-prone areas. And the third was basically the study that we did in integrating watershed management and PGWM while we were piloting groundwater management and governance through Niranchal program in Dhanbad district. So these were the 3 major sources of our learnings, and that is what I'm going to be sharing with you. To begin with, I would say that there are certain steps within PGWM which helps us to understand as to why it is important. Why it is important in today's context, important why we were implementing this whole framework. So the first thing is about convergence of diverse understanding about the local ground. Now, the here is basically how do we get to know groundwater through the perceptions of people. We also kind of try to understand their definitions of problems, scarcity, abundance, quality issues, etc. And also look at these areas from the government lens in terms of their schemes of drinking water and sanitation. The second step is basically in terms of information compilation and sharing. Now, till now, the thrust was and remains as a kind of an initiative which initially goes to the community to generate knowledge and to compile knowledge which the community themselves have, rather than we going and sharing our understanding about groundwater. So it is extremely important that the information that we have collected from people, we tend to compile it together and share it with them so that they have a kind of confidence on their own knowledge systems. Unfortunately, the processes that we have been following is such that we tend to export or rather import information and knowledge from outside and we share it with people. But here, what we do is we kind of generate knowledge together about the local resource and then share it with people for a larger understanding. The other steps is basically need identification, which is again done in a collaborative fashion. The implementation is also done in a partnership model where it is not just the responsibility of Megh Pyne Abhiyan, but it is also about how do we bring in the community, how do we converge the interests of the community while with the implementation of the program that is happening. And finally, which is extremely critical, is the follow-up, because MPA, Megh Pyne Abhiyan, or all the partner organizations, we are not going to be in the community forever. So it is extremely important for us to develop systems which will ensure the sustenance of the work that has happened. So this is basically the major steps of PGWM. Now, if I have to tell you that, just by sharing these steps does not indicate the exact work that has gone in or what exactly PGWM is all about. So first of all, I would be sharing with you the functional framework of PGWM. So initially, I did talk about the different steps of PGWM. Now I'll be basically talking about the functional framework, which basically is, it kind of triggers from the sensitivity of the problem. And that is understood by interacting with the community. As I said earlier in phases that the knowledge generation and dissemination becomes an extremely important and a critical component of the entire PGWM operational framework. Cooperation and coordination is another element which we have to look into. It is critical because of the fact that here it is not about one particular stakeholder trying to import ideas and concepts and passing it out to the other one, but here it is about co-creating of a knowledge system which has bits and parts of both the stakeholders, basically the implementing agency as well as the primary stakeholder. As I said, sustenance is an important part, and creating knowledge systems and their managers is extremely important. So local human resources is an important component in the entire framework. We need, and with the help of the work that we have done over the period, it helps us basically to redefine management. How do we actually define participatory management? And that happens primarily because of the processes that have been you know uh, adopted earlier. Once the management systems are redefined, we tend to work on protocols. Now, the protocols are such that are collectively defined by the community in terms of what's good and what's bad, based on informed choices. And thereafter, we look into the relevance and how do we sustain the relevance of PGWM in the community. So, in a nutshell, this is the functional framework that we have been following and what we have learned of PGWM. The second one is basically collaboration. Now, unfortunately, whenever participation comes in, or the term participatory kicks in, we tend to feel that, or the normal notion is that participation has to be just in terms of the community and the implementing agency, which in our case, we thought that it is not. Because if we are talking about participatory, it has a larger, it's a larger definition, and the definition includes various actors. And unless and until we include them, it becomes extremely difficult to term an intervention as participatory, because of the fact that we are not taking into account where various critical partners who play an important role. For instance, the support organization. Now, unless and until we have a support organization which is kind of pushing to see this kind of a concept getting grounded, it is extremely difficult to even talk about it or even try to implement it. Now comes the governance system. The governance system is important because starting from the state to the district to the block to the panchayat, all of these need to be engaged with. They need to be involved when we're talking about participatory groundwater management. If we think that we would keep the governance system away from the entire work, then I don't think so that we would be doing much justice to what we are calling it as participatory. Then, of course, community and people. Then comes implementing agencies. Then thematic specialists. And after that, at the end, we have resource organizations or research organizations who look into the work that have happened and critically analyze it, whether the work that has been done in a participatory manner or not. And this collaborative framework is something that we realized we initially failed to understand. And then when we realized, we tried to adopt it. And believe you me, it helps a lot in terms of when we are trying to set in or trying to identify a particular area to implement PGWM. Thereafter, after the governance, basically the earlier slide that I showed in terms of how exactly what is a collaborative framework. Now it comes to the experience. How do you implement PGWM at the field level? And this is from a perspective of an implementing agency. Now, the implementing agency has to look into the past work of theirs, the processes they have been adopted, and their own definition of participation. And why is it important? Because PGWM, when you are implementing it, a lot of it is going to change from what was practiced earlier. So there is definitely the need to look into the past and also assess the present in terms of how the work is being implemented or is to be implemented. And then only the realization would come in. Now, the second part of the PGWM from a implementing agency's perspective is basically what are the ways we tend to bring together the local knowledge and the scientific understanding of groundwater and geology. And it is not that the knowledge of groundwater and geology does not exist in the rural areas. They do. The only difference is that they use a different language. Their expressions are different. So if you are able to understand the expressions of what people have been talking about as far as the groundwater dynamics is concerned, groundwater is concerned, and geology is concerned, it makes a lot more easy to talk about the scientific terminology of groundwater and geology and mix them together to have a larger, and for people to get. Now, it's once we have that kind of an understanding, once we bring together those knowledge systems, it becomes much easier to learn about the nature, character, contamination level of groundwater. Because communities have their own expressions. I still remember, community people, to me, they had expressed the quantity and the quality issues of groundwater through aesthetics. And for me, it was an eye opener because I had never seen that. I had never experienced people using aesthetics to tell as to what is the quality of the groundwater, what are the problems they are facing as far as the groundwater is concerned. So, all of these tend to help in laying down the foundation for local water management. And it also helps in understanding the problem better, and it also helps us in trying to be very specific in terms of groundwater triggered problems, surface water triggered problems, human induced groundwater triggered problems, etc. And once you decipher these different problems, it becomes easier to develop a kind of a system which helps people to protect the groundwater collectively rather than doing it as individual interventions. And the participatory processes. Now, this is just one type that I'm kind of sharing. I'm not saying that this is the template, but this is how we had done it. It was basically trying to understand the groundwater issues through a very informal interactions, and also trying to identify the right stakeholder within the community. I mean, community is a very loosely used term, and there are a lot of factions within the term of community. So we had to actually look at who are the stakeholders, who are the people or category of people who would be extremely helpful for us to push for a PGWM kind of a work in the community level. And for us, it was basically the senior citizens. And they are a repository of knowledge. And it is high time that we recognize that knowledge and we try to mainstream the knowledge that they have. And as said earlier, they have their own expressions. So it is up to us to decipher the expressions, try to understand what they are saying in their own terms, and then decode it and share it with the larger audience. We also felt that women and adolescent girls did contribute a lot towards the entire collective discourse on groundwater. And I was utterly surprised when we were working towards looking at creating a cadre of local key resource persons. We realized that there was a lot of enthusiasm amongst girls to be part of it. And then once we have had these informal interactions and specific stakeholder specific interactions, we also we compiled the knowledge and then we had to share it with different stakeholders, not only within the community but outside as well. Now that was done primarily to iterate the point that the knowledge that we think do not exist with the community, they do have it. It's just that how do we decode it? And it was such processes which helped us transform the entire existing thinking and action work of being individualistic to moving towards a collective intervention. So this is basically a small when we were talking about the key resource persons or bhujal doots as we used to call them. Now there was again a process which was followed as to how do we identify. It was not an ad hoc process. It was a well laid out, well tested process where we started off with community interactions. We spotted individuals. We tried to work with them. With the help of these spotted individuals, we grew our network at the community level. expose them to different issues with regard to groundwater and its science through trainings, and then involve them as well in terms of how would their work be incorporated when we are looking at groundwater PGWM, while they actually helped us to develop the entire protocols in communities where we had worked. So the whole purpose behind PGWM was basically to shift the ownership from individual to common, to shift the whole management of groundwater the whole management protocols from sources to resource. Sources in the sense hand pumps, dug wells, than just not looking at the sources, but also looking at resource. And for as far as participation is concerned, to trigger community participation in developing, understanding, and generating knowledge and converting them into action. So this was the whole purpose of why we wanted to execute PGWM in alluvial floodplains of North Bihar. And mind you, in this area, it is basically water is in abundance, and yet we realized that there was extreme importance of PGWM because of the fact that despite the abundance, there was scarcity because of quality issues. So, what were the key outcomes? I mean, what did we achieve at the end of it, or what did we come out with? Because this was for the first time that PGWM was being piloted in the alluvial floodplains of North Bihar. And I will not be wrong that we were slightly ahead of our times when we started this work, and we did encounter a lot of challenges. But the fact is, today when we look at drinking water schemes or sanitation schemes, or for other drinking water projects being implemented, I feel personally that the context of PGWM is extremely important. So what were the key outcomes of PGWM? First was that we came up with drinking water protocol, where there was none. The concept of protocol did not exist, primarily because it was more individual driven rather than collective. It was about source and resource sharing. Earlier, we used to see that there used to be fights between households. If one particular household used to use the hand pump of the other household, and the household which allowed people to use that particular hand pump, they used to start feeling that excess water is being abstracted from their hand pump, and therefore there'll be a fall of groundwater. So we actually wanted to have this shift in the community where they start looking at groundwater as a common pool resource and not as an individual resource. And therefore, it was important to have the sharing of source and resource. The third one is basically in terms of demand of safe drinking water. It was important because the earlier narratives told them or convinced people that water coming from the hand pumps are safe. But when we went around and tested the water, we realized there was either bacteriological contamination or high levels of iron, or for that matter, arsenic, or all three. So there was a lot of consciousness which was developed, which actually translated in people asking or demanding for safe water, and also trying to develop alternatives at the local level. We also looked at ecologically sustainable and disaster resilient sanitation system because of the fact that because of the shallow aquifers, which was largely tapped by people having individual hand pumps, we wanted that particular shallow aquifer to be safe. And in order to to ensure its safety, it was definitely critical to come up with an alternative sanitation which did not create a problem of biological contamination of groundwater. And then the last one is basically institutional building, which we tried to do at the panchayat level and also at the ward level, because it is that ward is the most decentralized unit of our governance system. So at the end, I would say that the work has not been over yet. We continue to explore and understand groundwater collectively. We try to collectively interpret the outcomes and see as to how there would be interventions planned and designed so that there is a lot of importance given to the purpose of PGWM, which basically talks about collective responsibility towards common pool resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eklavya. Thank you so much for being so crisp and bringing the points in a very structured manner. It was feeling like a masterclass for me, to be honest. Wonderful. So let me just invite our second speaker of the day, and we will take the discussion of Eklavya after Vishwanath has presented. Meanwhile, I request all the participants to put up their comments and questions in the chat box, and welcome again to all of you. And thanks for your time. So Vishwanath is an architect, urban planner by profession, as well as by education, but he could not restrict himself in there as a consultant, and he has explored towards basic elements of life. And he talks about life in terms of soil, water, and forest. When he was an assistant professor at UPES University, UPES University in the School of Planning, Dehradun, he learned about the key components of doing organic farming. And thereafter, he left the job and he started working with some farmers. The idea was to learn to make soil toxic-free by using organic farming or agroforestry. He went on to develop acres of barren land into beautiful green forests. But while doing this initiative, the water scarcity became a point of concern, and I think it's for many of them. And I think Eklavya has already pointed it out through his Bihar experience and rest of the country. Vishwanath then facilitated farmers to use drip irrigation systems, sprinkler systems for farming. He also helped them in getting organic farming certifications. Water issues did not stop there for him and his fellows. So he, with farmers, learned about basic knowledge about filtering of wastewater using nature-based solutions, such as constructed wetlands from DRS Environmental Services. He completed some online and offline courses related to water bodies rejuvenation, source management from Tarun Bharat Sangh, NIUA, and later he actually formed the Bhujal Foundation, where he leads the foundation today, and he's busy restoring and rejuvenating urban-rural ponds in his home town, Agra. He is very keen on creating a healthy, self-sustainable, and eco-friendly environment, and he also works as consultant in architecture and environmental conservation works. So Vishwanath, welcome to the discussion. You already heard Eklavya, and I'm looking forward to really having some added knowledge into this discourse. Over to you, and we look forward to hearing. Okay, and may I request to have it in the horizontal format, Vishwanath? That will be nice.
Hello, Mansee.
Hi, Vishwanath. Can I request you to put it in the horizontal format, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
But then we see you like this, huh? Because you are also going to be visible.
Okay, there is some issue. I'm not able to manage it.
No problem.
Keep this,
Please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, this is about actually participatory groundwater management, but still I'm hoping that I would be able to justify this. As per the Bhujal Foundation part, we started with this pond rejuvenation, and the rest of the my introduction being done by Mansee already. So, okay, we are doing water rejuvenation project under the Agra Nagar Nigam, and this is important because we know that water scarcity is on high time actually. So this is need to be addressed right now. So Agra Nagar Nigam actually they identified many water bodies, and those water bodies was basically dump sites and highly polluted zones, and mostly these were the places where nobody wants to move around actually. There was a passage and the people used to follow the other path right in spite of using that specific passage. And today the things have already changed. And the idea of selection of these water bodies by the Nagar Nigam was basically 1 acre site, and they have selected both the rural and the urban water bodies. water bodies revival, actually, the idea of this specific case, they just wanted, because every water body doesn't talk about just water body, but itself it talks about lot many things. So the proposal was revival, landscape, creating a community space for cultural, social, and recreational purpose on priority. That was the point over there. So this was the methodology we adopt, because identification of sites is always important. And in that case, we just look at it like the water bodies, like lake, stream, or wetland. Developing an understanding about the site is very important, because always important in terms of context and the historical background and the user group. Because water bodies we find in rural and urban both places. Identification of issues and challenges are always important, because without that we cannot make a proposal out of it. Critical analysis and takeaways from that is again the part of it for sustainable development approach, and the comprehensive landscape development plans and policies again. Execution, actually, when we are executing things with Nagar Nigam, there in execution we are facing a lot of issues that we'll talk in the presentation. Next. So in the picture, we can confirm that the condition of the water bodies are already very bad, and the pond 2, which is a rural pond actually, and the pond 4, again the rural pond. So these ponds were not having those garbage dumped on that pond, but the edges was not clear, and we were actually having a proposal like creating a community open space. So that was our idea. So we were supposed to do the landscape part. So in that case, we just took out a lot of things, a lot of activities over there in terms of execution. So what we are doing for ponds actually, because to make the pond function in true sense or bring out its real picture, it's how it exists earlier, is really a challenge. Challenge in terms of the outcome, and challenge in terms of the mindset of the Nagar Nigam, which is a government body, and the consultant. We are actually having our own ideas. Most of the time, there are clashes in terms of ideas, because the department already they have pressure from their heads from the state that just finish the project as early as possible. But this is some kind of problem with the consultant, that in that case they just want to wind up everything. They don't bother about a lot of things which were very critical, and have to have very serious concern on that. Next slide. Mansee, next.
Yes, I'm.
So while putting up the proposal, these were the 3 stages actually. In each pond we just try to capture. There are certain stages, and the stage 1 is the cleaning of site. So there was some dump site, then dewatering, desilting, deeping, and redefining the edges. Because otherwise there were a lot of issues, because a lot of encroachments was also there in both the places, rural and urban. Stage 2, which is STP plant waste management, again important, and lighting of spaces, because in the evening time, those spaces might need light, so that it might not be a nuisance space. Drain diversion, which is a key component of that part of pond rejuvenation when we started. A few more points we'll discuss in the later slide. Stage 3 is community space, children's park, open gym, and pedestrian. These were something that in each DPR they just wanted to capture. Next slide. Okay. The similarities in our vision and proposal, which Amrit Mission guidelines by state agency was actually, I'm just putting this slide because there were, when we started, the drain diversion was the only point which we were asked to do. But later on, this circular came up from the state agency recently 2-3 months back, and which says a lot of good things which we must adopt in the earlier stage when we started the pond one. So improvement in inflow volume of water in water body, that is important, because if a water body is 1 acre site and we are developing a landscape and whatever, so earlier the drains was coming in the pond, and now what they are doing is they are diverting those drains. Then what happens is the whole water body would be dependent on rainwater. The area which the water body is having might not fill the pond completely, because the precipitation level in each of the place is already draining every year. So that might be the problem. So in this circular, they ask for inflow volume of water with the help of creating stormwater drain channels from the household level to connect the pond. That was a very important point. Perenniality of water in the pond, which is again an important point, but earlier they were not talking about that. Increasing the quantity of water, which is deepening, that we are doing. So drain diversion we are doing, but we are not connecting the stormwater channels or not creating any stormwater channel to connect the pond and the catchment, because this connecting stormwater channel means we are increasing the catchment area to fill the pond. Second point is water quality. They are talking about the STPs. We talked about the STP earlier, but they refused to put a STP over there. Fight over remediation, which is constructive wetland, and again bioremediation, which was another point which we were looking in this circular, which is a biological this thing to clean the water for having a good quality. Next is sustainability of water quality, which is putting aerator to improve oxygen level in the pond, and that is again no issue with us, because this can be done later on in each pond. But the second point and the few points in the first point are something that we must see, which must be addressed earlier. Next slide. So it seems very clear that at governance level, water bodies are getting huge attention. Either it is government or civil society, both are putting their efforts. Addressing of environmental degradation of ponds and their life is on priority. But in government order, nothing was mentioned about participation of stakeholders. So in that government order, participation or public participation was not mentioned at any stage. So this is something that is important to be discussed over here, that when we are talking about participation, that is lacking in this government order also. So does those water bodies require any public participation? Yes, sir, this is the key point here, because this has direct impact on community living and environment. So one must come forward or must be given the responsibility of its long life function. Otherwise, things will fail. Definitely it will fail. Because you create the infrastructure, you create a very nice landscape and water body over there. But if the maintenance and the responsibility of no one will take over there, then this will not function in a long run. That's the point. Next. So this is a slide which actually this was the proposal we put in front of the authority, and identifying the existing features and community practices around those water bodies. And secondly, this has been looking for the proposal to be given in regard of water body rejuvenation. So because I discussed earlier that the context is always important. So these sites were having certain communities which were having a very bad practice over there. It was like open defecation area, and full of filth, full of garbage, and huge waterlogging. So we was just try to capture that part, and we discussed with the community, and their own benefit level, the people around the pond, when we were having the stakeholder discussion, they said that nobody want to buy a home over here because this is a filthy place. Now, when we have developed the pond, now the price of the those houses have shoot up, and everyone want to come here for buying a house because their home is facing a pond or a landscape area, community open space. So this is the benefit that the people who were earlier there and now they are getting it. Next. So these are the some activities which I have put some photographs over here. So drain diversion, waste removal, desilting, deeping of the pond, retaining wall foundation. Because when we were going down, the to stop the landslide and other things, because we were creating a pathway and this landscape on the pathway level, the upper level. So this is the retaining wall we required. So retaining wall is right now in construction. The pond pitching is again. So again, in the pond one, we already proposed in the DPR that we will be doing the stone pitching on the pitching part of the pond. But the department has refused to do that due to certain issues. I don't know what was the issue. And they said that we would be doing the RCC part on the pitching part. And this is again really serious actually. We told them that the RCC is not a sustainable material and it has certain issues with the environment. So why you are putting RCC over there? They said that we are having we had already a discussion over on the above team, so you have to do that. So this is something that is happening over here. Next. So challenges we are facing in terms of ponds, and there are concern also lack of clear understanding of what we are trying to do in terms of Nagar Nigam, what they are doing for and for what purpose. Poor practice of DPR preparation initially without knowing the site challenges, existing features, and community consultation. Because these DPR, they actually prepared on their department level and they just had a picture of those ponds and they prepared the DPR. And everything was fixed. Lack of understanding of site context before planning, proposal, and execution. And our concern are Nagar Nigam look at pond rejuvenation as another liability. We thought that project due to immense pressure on their head only when summer starts. When the winters and the monsoon start, nothing happens. If local government will not take it serious, then outcome will be something bad. Lack of understanding towards nature-based solution. Nobody knows about the nature-based solution in department, and that is serious because we propose that we should do that, and we should filter because the filtration of wastewater actually happens in three stages: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Nature-based solution is something which happens in the tertiary sector. After that, we can take those wastewater in the pond and floating wetlands and everything we can create. And doing pisciculture again would be an advantage over there. So this is not happening actually in that case. Next. Pond doesn't need more money sanctioned in DPR, but care, attention, and participation of every individual people. Pond is not just for recharging the groundwater or collecting a rainwater, exactly, because it has a lot more connection. Because if we want to do the water recharging of rainwater, that could be done some other way. Why to invest 50 lakh or 1 crore and some amount of money? Under 2.0 guidelines are okay, but execution is going in some other direction in terms of certain in these cases. These water bodies do have social and cultural connect with environmental benefits, and that is important because at community level it happens. It is always invited. Lastly, water bodies, vegetation, and soil make a nexus. Everybody knows if we disturb any one of them, things become worse in years. So every water body must have huge vegetation around it at least, because in this case, the point is, if in this case, suppose the precipitation happens very low in any of the years, at least the vegetation would be there and the shaded area, the community would enjoy the shaded areas at least. And those shaded areas would have some biodiversity, the birds and all. So that is another advantage. And let's create a biodiverse world for everyone. Otherwise, I don't know what to say. Next, I think we have completed.
Thank you so much, Vishwanath. Yeah, thank you so much, Vishwanath. Thanks. I'm just stopping the sharing and we will quickly move on to the discussion. And you saw, Imroz, how both the speakers gave a very different perspective, where Eklavya was talking about how community mobilization, social engineering happens. And Vishwanath really took you through the physical aspect of the resource, which Eklavya was talking about. So you have both the aspect, the social aspect and the physical aspect, and you also have both the aspect of urban and rural. So before I invite you to engage both the speakers, let me just do a quick introduction of you, so that our participants here also get to know Mohammad Imroz here. Imroz, first of all, he is my ex-student from Terry School of Advanced Studies, Delhi. And he studied resources engineering and management, and now he's learning more about the environment and sustainability with a PG diploma. He has worked as a researcher and data analyst in environmental and water resources. His job is to find important information from data to help make good decisions. Imroz really cares about protecting the environment, and he wants to keep helping in the fields of environmental science and water management. As I said to you, Imroz, you heard both the speakers, you heard both the settings, urban and rural. You have heard both social and ecological challenges as well as opportunities, how water systems are taken care at physical level, at governance level, as well as at people's level. So I hand it over to you to engage both the speakers and also invite our participants to ask questions with the speakers. Over to you, Imroz.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for both speaker, whatever you present. It's really amazing. It's too informatics in the very well-mannered way. So first, I would like to ask one question that is related to the participatory. So my question is like, how do you balance the need and interest for different stakeholders, such as the farmer, local government, or environmental group in groundwater management? So anyone could you like to answer?
Would you like to answer this? Eklavya, please go ahead.
Okay. Look, the work that we did in Bihar, in North Bihar, the entire thrust there was on drinking water. So there were no contestation as such. Now,
Yes.
there was a different kind of a contestation also in terms when we were talking about participatory. In order to define and in order to execute the term participatory in itself is quite challenging. It looks very easy when we talk about it. But when you execute, there are a lot of challenges because our communities, as I said during my presentation, that they're divided on various lines, and the biggest of all happens to be caste. So when we were talking about sharing of sources and resource, that in itself was a big challenge. So that is one. The second point of participation is, or participatory approach was, that the administration, the state also had to be told about this whole process. Otherwise, it's very easy to say that this particular work has been done in a participatory model. So our challenges were not with farmers and drinking water. We were, as I said, we were focusing on drinking water. So our challenges was from the community itself because it was divided. And also with the governance system, because we had to translate the problem and put it across to them with a solution which had a participatory model, which in itself was challenging. So this was the whole issue. And to add on to it was the fact that we were talking about groundwater contamination, either with largely arsenic and iron in areas which were not identified as areas affected by arsenic and iron. So that was another kind of challenge which we had in rolling out the participatory.
Go ahead, Imroz.
Yeah, thank you, Eklavya. I just cut it. I mean, what you presented previously. So I have one question from your side. Like, how can participatory government
Imroz,
groundwater management?
Yes,
I can't
there
hear
is
you
some
properly.
sound problem.
There's some problem at your end.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yes,
Yes.
now it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I would like to put another questions from for you, Eklavya. How can a participatory groundwater management framework be aligned with the Jal Jeevan Mission program for better governance?
Very good
Very
question.
well. Very extremely pertinent question. Now you see, the purpose of Jal Jeevan Mission is to ensure drinking water supply to people by providing taps at their household level. So that's one part. The other part, which is more important, is to ensure sustenance of the water supply. At the moment, it is being undertaken either by the department or the contractors who are doing the work. There will be a time when they would be handed over either to the panchayat or to the communities which are the recipients as of now. At that point of time, what happens? So unless and until the protocols are followed, the framework, the participatory framework is followed, starting from engaging and involving people to understand what is happening. Because you see, right now, what is happening that we are removing or we are creating a distance between the users and the resource. पहले जब कुआं था तो कुआं में पानी देखकर हम लोग पानी इस्तेमाल करते थे. Then we had hand pumps which were individual hand pumps. So people could figure out कि flow में कमी आया है, ज़्यादा handle मारने से पानी आ रहा है या कम handle मारने से पानी अभी भी आ रहा है. But right now the water is actually being supplied from the groundwater, but the source is far away, and the source for people happens to be the tap. Like what is happening in the urban areas, which is good. People should be given good water. But the point is, how will they manage unless and until we involve them in all the phases of implementation of the work that is happening, and also to tell them as to how it needs to be maintained. So PGWM not only involves people in executing a work, but it also provides them with a space for them to maintain, operate, and take responsibility of the facility which is being provided. So it has to be seen. I mean, it has to be seen from a participatory drinking water management framework, not only groundwater.
Yes, yes,
So,
that is the
I
correct
think
way.
the challenge
Yeah.
was already seen in the way Vishwanath was talking about. The participation aspect is almost missing in the urban component. So that is what you highlighted in the rural part, that it has to be socially engineered even for participation to happen. Over to you, Imroz.
Yeah. So for that, I would like to last question for you, Eklavya. When we are talking about the rural and urban, so I want to focus on the how can we successfully implement a sustainable practice participatory groundwater management framework in the rural as well as urban, and what are the strategy it possible to make a more sustainable?
okay. So let me slightly tweak your question and I'll answer
Yeah.
it, but I'll slightly tweak it. So
Yeah.
the learnings that we had from the PGWM in North Bihar, we actually utilized the whole thing, the whole framework, to implement an ongoing project, which is called the Shallow Aquifer Management in Dhanbad Municipal Corporation area. Now, the whole Shallow Aquifer Management project is actually a pilot by the Amrut 2.0, and it's coordinated by NIUA and mentored by Vishwanath S. Vishwanath from Biome and Himanshu Kulkarni from Aquatam. Now, what we are doing, what Megh Pyne did in Dhanbad was we actually visited almost about 108 locations. We had series of interaction with people from 108 locations because we were not sure whether shallow aquifer is actually a reality in Dhanbad Municipal Corporation or not. It was only when we went to these 108 locations, we realized that out of that, almost 75% of the locations were dependent on dug well. There was no other water source. They were only dependent on dug well, and I'm talking about areas which were in and around the coalfield areas. And as I am from Dhanbad, we were always told that coalfield areas mein pani to hai nahi. And I was shocked to see dug wells being alive and kicking. It is only between March and June that the people have problems because the dug wells go dry. And when we started planning, so from 108, we came down to almost 6 locations where we were supposed to do the planning, out of which we are doing it in 4 locations. Now, the entire work was planned with the people. We created that space where we said that what could be done. I mean, we were told about the symbiotic relationship between a pond and a dug well. We were told as to how the pond is the heart and soul of the dug well, and how the water, when there is no water in the pond, the dug well goes dry. And we are seeing it. I've seen it for 2 summers. So it is about the approach, and one has to also be very sure of the fact that there are certain isms that we carry. हम लोग बाहर हमें कुछ अपनी ज्ञान होती है. जब लोगों से बात करते हैं तो those ज्ञान्स they tend to get destroyed. So we have to be smart enough and sensitive enough to say that, oh, that information we need to dump and listen to what people have to say. Maybe they are right because they are the witness of what is the dynamics. So the learnings from PGWM in Bihar, actually we put it in practice in the shallow aquifer management work that we are doing right now with Dhanbad Municipal Corporation. And the same thing was communicated to Dhanbad Municipal Corporation. And they did agree to the fact that because there were no institutional memory of what work should be done there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to take one question, and that is the Nishant Upadhyaya. Asking about how much is local culture connect with the water bodies considered utilized in the inception of the discuss scheme. So in the chat box, he was asking. So,
I think I'll invite both
Okay.
the speakers to take this question. Because
both
it is
speakers.
about participation. And Vishwanath raised a very important point when we see the difference between urban and rural. So Eklavya, you go first and then we invite Vishwanath.
Okay, thank you, Mansee. I'm not able to understand this question properly. I mean, how much is local cultural connections with water bodies considered, utilized in the inception of the discussed schemes? Now, the discussed schemes, are we talking about Jal Jeevan Mission, or are we talking about shallow aquifer management? Which schemes are we talking about here?
Let me just jump in because Nishant is here. Why don't you unmute yourself? And I think in your projects, you can just give example from your projects, both of you. And I don't see Vishwanath right now. Did we lose him?
No, he's there. Vishwanath is there.
Yeah, I think shallow aquifer.
Okay, you are here. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so maybe you both give example from your own projects where you have been involved and talk about the perspective.
All right. Yeah. So, Nishant, as far as the shallow aquifer is concerned, we came across 2 different, extremely poles apart kind of an experience. The first one was that people were using the pond, or they were saving the pond as with their own limitations in order to keep their dug well alive. So they were seeing some immediate outcome of the pond being there. And believe you me, this pond is very close to a coal mine. open cast mine. And it's sandwiched between the open cast mine and the urban habitation of Dhanbad city. It's quite a prime property. But then that is still being considered as a good space. Now, when we started work, there were a lot of oppositions. And the opposition was largely to have a clear understanding as to what is being done. They saw a contractor going there and working. So before allowing the contractor, because they have a kind of an image as to how the contractor works. So they were extremely careful. We had to sit with them to make them articulate the entire DPR in a brief to tell them what exactly work is. And it was only then that they allowed us to work, to desilt the dug well. And a scientific process was adopted to understand as to how much of desilting has to be done. And as Vishwanath mentioned rightly, that the soil thing has to be taken into consideration. Now, when the desilting work was happening, they again stopped the work. Because of the fact they wanted clarity in terms of the bunds. And it was also their way of trying to figure out in terms of whether the work is being monitored or not. So this is a kind of a connect. I mean, I won't call it cultural connect, but this is kind of a functional connect that people have with the pond. On the other hand, there was a pond which whenever it was largely encroached, but little of land was still left. And people downstream to that pond, they said that there is again a symbiotic relationship, but they were least bothered of the encroachment, of the way the pond was created into an open field. So there are different scenarios, and I would say that the more we explore, the more kind of numbers of different cases I'll be able to present to you. But these were two stark examples. I hope I answered that question.
Okay. Let me say something actually here. Hello.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Actually, cultural, because already I have mentioned that the government circular actually said that over there, what I have presented. But when people like us, when they go forward for rejuvenation kind of project in terms of water bodies, any kind of water bodies, they always talk about social, cultural, and that ecological connect. Because when we talk about the success of any project, it is a priority. It must be on the priority, because when we ask the authority that after creating all those landscape and everything, you are putting every garden furniture and everything, the open gym and all for the children and for the old, and the pathways and everything. If the infrastructure is there, then who will take care of that? Because there would be some nuisance also, because the water body which we are developing at a site where every time you will find any kind of some nuisance over there. If such landscape would be created over there, then I think that it must be something that which need to be addressed. So they said that we will assign something to the Parshad, the local representative of that ward. So that is not the point, because otherwise it will fail. And that's why I'm saying that, because in Hindu or even any of other community, the water bodies and the vegetation and the community open space, even in the villages, we call it Ghura Pujan, which is Ghura Pujan is like garbage dump outside the household. It is also been in use at certain events in the marriage, after marriages. So it means that everything is having some kind of advantage or some connect, cultural connect or something like that. So it means that while putting all these efforts, This is actually very important to be addressed, but it fails in such kind of projects, which I have already mentioned. And this is really strange that nobody bother about that.
You know, when we talk about cultural aspects and we take nuisance into account and all kinds of ignorance, I think that is itself a cultural trait. And me and Nishant can go on discussing this. But over to you, Imroz. Maybe we invite Ilangovan Rajan to place
Yeah.
question. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Good
Hi.
evening. I am Dr. Ilangovan from Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore area.
Hi, sir. Thank you.
That Sanjay sent me this link.
Yeah.
So this is the second or third meeting I'm just participating. Two speakers have spoken very well, and they have mentioned about everything in a very clear manner. My doubt is, if in urban area, normally the groundwater is being polluted due to mismanagement of wastewater, urban wastewater, including the septic tank. Even the septic tanks are not properly constructed by the developers. Whether it is an individual septic tank or it is a big septic. If it is in that case, the groundwater is polluted, is there any method to treat this minimum level treatment and reach the water for domestic purpose? Have you looked in that aspect? Groundwater management is the exact meaning today is in our state we are suffered a lot with pollution. So wherever we dig a borewell and even if we pump that water, maybe it may be naturally TDS more, sometimes fluoride more, but artificially, if you look at the water quality is not fit for even washed clothing, washing the cloth. So that in that case, what will be the solution or what we are adopting here or recommending here? One question.
Yeah, good. Vishwanath, please take the question because you worked in the urban. Yeah, go ahead.
So actually, this is not the case of Tamil Nadu only. This is a case which happens every place in India. So let me take this way that if any region, if it is we are identifying that the TDS level is high or the contamination level is high, it means there is something wrong which is happening around us, because aquifer stream doesn't. They are many of the you will find in a region many aquifer streams. It means they are not connected to each other. Otherwise, every aquifer would be contaminated. So it means any of the stream would be there which is contaminated, maybe due to some industry part. Because people from industry, they are actually out of monitoring. So they just do that bad practices by hiding themselves in these cases, and they contaminate the whole water. So in that case also, I think that this was something that I don't know, at the governance level, we need to address it, because we need to identify that the source point from where the contamination is happening. Second point you asked, second point was, I don't know, I forgot the second point.
Solution. One thing we have to stop that contamination sources. That is the one way. Already contaminated water, how it can be treated or how it can be used. Whether rainwater harvesting,
Okay. Yeah.
water to the borewell will help to dilute that contamination. Is there any study in that?
No, actually, I don't. I have to go through it. I would be able to find out. But in Delhi, what they are doing is, because I came to know that in Delhi they are developing those lakes. If the three level of treatment of water is happening, the primary, secondary, and tertiary. In tertiary, they are cleaning that water from your nature-based solution, and then they are putting in the pond. And in that pond, the water is getting the water is recharging the whole aquifer. That is the, because this is the whole process which is after filtration 3 stages. It means that we have already reduced the contamination level up to huge level, maybe 70-80% on what, and rest of the things would be done by the pond. So this must be the process of cleaning our water. Then the pisciculture. Again, fishes, we forgot fishes actually. In pisciculture, we have to take care of that, because अगर आपने कुछ भी गलती किया तो the whole fishes will get die in that case. So that is very important, because it require a pure attention. One case I would like to share over here. In Noida, in Greater Noida, actually, I came to know that they just for the authority put a rain well. So rain well was like they were capturing they increased the catchment area of rainwater, collecting, channelizing those rainwater and putting in that well, which they call it rain well. In 10 years, around 10 years, the TDS level of those areas was drastically changed. That when the TDS was around 4,000 or 5,000, it came down to 2,500. So that is something that happened in 10 years. It means any of the place in India, if it is having certain cases, if we have huge amount of or a good amount of rain, it means that we can change the TDS level again, because we are diluting that part. So dilution is important. In our case also, we mentioned in the authority that when there is a rain, all the drains which was coming to the water body, we divert it. That's okay. But we can take the overflow through nature-based solution, which is we would be putting concentric wetlands and all. And from there, we can take that water in the pond. It means only in the rainy season, the overflow of drains could be used in that case, because the contamination or the pollution level of those drains would be diluted. The overflow we can take, removing the garbage and all, and treating that overflow through our nature-based solution, we might help in that case. Otherwise, the whole drains would be empty, or it would not be perennial throughout the year. So that needs to be addressed in these cases.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I am so tempted always to engage in these kind of discussions, but being the host of the session, I have to always restrain myself and take charge of the time as well. Imroz, do you have any last burning question, or what do you wish to do?
No, ma'am. That is the whatever question I put it. I think it is sufficient for the understanding the whole related to the topic. And I am done. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Imroz. Thanks a lot. And first of all, let me just summarize in just few lines, 3 or 4 lines, because we are already in the paucity of the time. We heard Eklavya very clear how social engineering is at the source, or is the most crucial aspect of doing participatory groundwater management. The word participatory itself has to be more important, because water management is more people management than managing the water itself. And then we heard how Vishwanath really took us through in the urban case of Agra, and really talked about how participation itself is a challenge in urban settings, you know. And this is not something new we are hearing from Vishwanath. It's there for long time now, where the heterogeneous community of cities are really having a challenge to come together and look at the aspect of doing things together. Because the way Eklavya talked about, from individualism to taking collectivism as the core of participatory groundwater management, and co-learning importantly, and making a collective decision that what is good for us. Whereas in heterogeneous societies, it is extremely difficult, first of all, to bring together people, you know. And if there are few of these water warriors who are working, it is really hats off to them. I'm not saying rural areas are easy, but urban areas, personally for me, is a lost case. It reminds me of working on one of the lakes in Agra, by the way, Vishwanath. I was just doing remote control thing on social engineering aspect of Sardar Patel Lake in your Kent area, by the way. And all I was doing is how to mobilize people, and the local community really did everything by themselves. So that is where I think we have to talk about whether, as rightly mentioned by Eklavya, water management or groundwater management. Participation, and both Vishwanath also highlighted that participation remains as the core, because whatever is done by any authority, any NGO, if it has to succeed, community has to engage in it. Otherwise, it's not going in the long run. So with these lines, let me just first of all thank both Eklavya Prasad and Vishwanath Parmar for their presentations, and also Mohammad Imroz to raise some pertinent questions to our speakers. And last but not the least, all our participants who are here and online on YouTube for their consistent support and encouragement to W4W Foundation to run these Wednesdays for Water conversation series. We are going great with at least confirmed sessions until July. I'm always announcing that. I'm not saying for the long run, but at least I keep a schedule for at least 2 months so that I know we are running. So next Monday, we are having a wonderful session to discuss with Kanika Niyok from CEEW to discuss Monday Munching with Women for Water. On every Monday, we invite women water professionals to understand their opportunities and challenges being in the water sector. Next, Wednesdays for Water, which is our signature series, we are discussing persistent organic pollutants and their sources, health impacts, and their management. So basically looking at the water treatment from different aspects. And we have wonderful speakers like today as well. So thank you once again to all of you, and really looking forward to more and more discussions, more Wednesdays and more discussions and more water knowledge put together at one place. Do visit our website www.w4w.in to look at all the 250 plus sessions which are there, from where you can really get to know many water enthusiasts, I will say, but more importantly, a collective learning platform. Thanks all of you. Please take care.
Thank you so much, Mansee. Thank you
Bye.
very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.